Hari. We're going to continue reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. We are on Canto 1, Chapter 1, Text 18. We have been hearing the sages of Naimisharanya, they out of their compassion for the coming age, because Kali Yuga is going to start, so for compassion for all of us, they were performing 1,000-year sacrifice. So we can see how the devotees, the sadhus, are so compassionate that they're always looking out for welfare of everyone. And they're putting questions to Sutta Goswami that please tell us that what is the best welfare activity for everyone. And we heard the qualification of the speaker, the qualification of the hearer yesterday. Does anyone remember? What's the qualification of the people who are hearing?
They should be very
sincere.
sincere.
Yes, sincere, yes.
Very
Sincere
eager.
and eager. Yes, right. Yes. Thank you. Sincere and eager. And the qualification of the speaker?
He should come in the parampara,
That's right.
line of the succession.
Line.
Yeah, in the disciplic succession, in the parampara system. That's right. Thank you so much. And the best welfare activity, what was it?
Glories, singing the glories of Krishna.
Yeah, that's right.
His name.
Thank you for
and Leela.
yes. Yes, and that will bring about what in the
Peace.
world? Peace in the
Peace
world.
in the Kali Yuga. Yeah.
By hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, by hearing the glories, chanting the glories of Lord Krishna will bring about peace in the world. So we can see if we actually really want peace, we have to become God conscious. We have to bring Bhagavatam back into our lives, the principles of Bhagavatam, if we really want world peace. So then continuing to text 18. Atha kyahi hare dhiman
Atha akhyahi hare dhiman
Dhiman.
avatara katha shubha
avatar katha
Avatara katha
shubha
shubha.
Leela vidadhata swairam
Leela vidadhata swaram
Swaram.
Ishvarasyatma mayaya.
Ishvarasya atma mayaya.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Would someone like to read?
Yeah, I can read.
Please.
Translation. O wise Sutta, please narrate to us the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Godhead's multi-incarnations. Such auspicious adventures and pastimes of the Lord, the Supreme Controller, are performed by his internal powers. Purport. For the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material world, the Supreme Lord Personality of Godhead himself appears in many thousands of forms of incarnations, and the specific adventures found in those transcendental forms are all auspicious. Both those who are present during such activities and those who hear the transcendental narrations of such activities are benefited.
So here we can see the difference about hearing the pastimes of the Lord and hearing about some mundane character. You know, there's a difference. When we are hearing about the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, it is beneficial. These narrations are transcendental, we are saying. And those who are hearing and those who are speaking both get benefited. You know, we may hear, we like to, of course, we like to speak about, say, there's superhuman characters of, say, movies, or we like to about any entertainers, or, we like to follow so many people on social media. But the real benefit we can get, transcendental benefit, is when we hear and speak about the glories of the Lord. So there's a difference between hearing the Leelas of the Lord and hearing about material people or, material subject matters. There's a huge difference. Hearing the transcendental subject matters brings about a purification of our consciousness. So reading on, Vayam tuna vitrapyama.
Vayam tuna vitrapyama.
Uttama shloka vikrame.
Uttama shloka
Uttama shloka vikrame.
Yakshin vatam rasa jnanam.
Yash Shrinvatam Prashad Jnana
Swadu swadu pade pade.
Swadu
Swadu
Pade.
Pade Pade. Translation. We never tire of hearing the transcendental pastimes of the personality of Godhead, who is glorified by hymns and prayers. Those who have developed a taste for transcendental relationships with Him relish hearing of His pastimes at every moment. Purport. There is a great difference between mundane stories, fiction, or history, and the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. The histories of the whole universe contain references to the pastimes of the incarnations of the Lord. The Ramayana, the Mahabharata, and the Puranas are histories of bygone ages recorded in connection with the pastimes of the incarnations of the Lord and therefore remain fresh even after repeated reading. For example, anyone may read Bhagavad Gita or the Srimad Bhagavatam repeatedly throughout his whole life and yet find in them new light of information. Mundane news is static, whereas transcendental news is dynamic. Inasmuch as the spirit is dynamic and the matter is static, those who have developed a taste for understanding the transcendental subject matter are never tired of hearing such narrations. One is quickly satiated by mundane activities, but no one is satiated by transcendental or devotional activities. Uttama Shloka indicates that literature which is not meant for nescience, mundane literature is in the mode of darkness or ignorance, whereas transcendental literature is quite different. Transcendental literature is above the mode of darkness, and its light becomes more luminous with progressive reading and realization of transcendental subject matter. The so-called liberated persons are never satisfied by the repetition of the words Aham Brahmasmi. Such artificial realization of Brahman becomes hackneyed, and so to relish real pleasure, they turn to the narrations of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Those who are not so fortunate turn to altruism and worldly philanthropy. This means the Mayavadi philosophy is mundane, whereas the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam is transcendental.
Here the sages are saying that one can go on repeatedly hearing the narrations and pastimes of the Lord. And the more one hears them, the more one relishes to hear them. The more one hears them, the more one wants to hear them. If we are watching a movie, well, how many times could we watch the same movie? 1, 2, 3, 4. It may be a very good movie. Maybe we could watch it, I don't know, 50, 60, maybe, if even. But hearing Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, one can do it every day for the full life, continuously. and one will feel more and more pleasure. One will feel more and more happiness because the transcendental pastimes of the Lord are on the spiritual platform, not material platform. Whatever we are hearing on the material platform, it gives us pleasure, yes, of course, but that pleasure is temporary and it's very little and it does not keep on increasing. Whereas when we hear and chant the pastimes of the Lord, the more we hear, the more we chant, the more we want to hear, the more we want to chant. I think we are all experiencing this. That's why we wake up in the morning, we want to hear Bhagavatam. Let's see what we are going to hear in Bhagavatam today, isn't it? So this is what the sages are telling, that the pastimes of the Lord, they remain ever fresh. One wants to continue to read, and one should continue to hear from Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita regularly throughout one's life. It even gives pleasure to those who are on the liberated platform. One can go on repeating Aham Brahmasmi, I am spirit soul, I am spirit soul, but after continuous repetition of that, one will come back to doing material activities. Or one may get attracted to hearing Srimad Bhagavatam and proceed on to spiritual activities. Because just artificially coming on the Brahman platform cannot help us sustain on that Brahman platform. So one has to take up devotional service, which begins by hearing and chanting, to actually come on the Brahman platform. To be practically situated on the Brahman platform. So hearing from Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Kritavan kila karmani.
Kritavan kila karmani.
Saha Ramena Keshavaha.
Saha Ramena Keshava.
Ati Martyani Bhagavan.
Ati Martyani Bhagavan.
Buddha Kapata Manushaha.
Kudha Kapata Manusha. Translation. Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, along with Balarama, played like a human being, and so masked he performed many superhuman acts. Purport. The doctrines of anthropomorphism and zoomorphism are never applicable to Sri Krishna or the personality of Godhead. The theory that a man becomes God by dint of penance and austerities is very much rampant nowadays, especially in India. Since Lord Rama, Lord Krishna, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were detected by the sages and saints to be the personality of Godhead as indicated in revealed scriptures, many unscrupulous men have created their own incarnations. This process of concocting an incarnation of God has become an ordinary business, especially in Bengal. Any popular personality with a few traits of mystic powers will display some feat of jugglery and is easily become an incarnation of Godhead by popular vote. Lord Sri Krishna was not that type of incarnation. He was actually the personality of Godhead from the very beginning of his appearance. He appeared before his so-called mother as four-armed Vishnu. Then, at the request of the mother, he became like a human child and at once left her for another devotee at Gokula, where he was accepted as the son of Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Mata. Similarly, Sri Baladeva, the counterpart of Lord Sri Krishna, was also considered a human child born of another wife of Sri Vasudeva. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that his birth and deeds are transcendental and that anyone who is so fortunate as to know the transcendental nature of his birth and deeds will at once become liberated and eligible to return to the kingdom of God. So, knowledge of the transcendental nature of the birth and deeds of Lord Sri Krishna is sufficient for liberation. In the Bhagavatam, the transcendental nature of the Lord is described in 9 cantos, and in the 10th canto, his specific pastimes are taken up. All this becomes known as one's reading of this literature progresses. It is important to note here, however, that the Lord exhibited his divinity even from the lap of his mother. The Lord exhibited his divinity even from the lap of his mother, that his deeds are all superhuman. He lifted Govardhana hill at the age of 7, and that all these acts definitely prove him to be actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yet, due to his mystic covering, he was always accepted as an ordinary human child by his so called father and mother and other relatives. Whenever some Herculean task was performed by him, the father and mother took it otherwise, as they remained satisfied with unflinching parental love for their son. As such, the sages of Naimisharanya describe him as apparently resembling a human being, but actually he is the supreme almighty personality of Godhead.
We may think, oh, Krishna, or just some mythology coming from bygone ages, or maybe he was like, how we have Superman and Iron Man, something like that. Or then we may say, oh, well, maybe he really existed, but maybe he had some mystic powers, like a magician. Or maybe he was, someone greater. Or maybe he was the impersonal Brahman who's taken the form now, that God is actually formless and now he's taken the form of Lord Krishna and come. But the correct understanding is that Lord Sri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That he is God himself, the original form of God, the Supreme Lord. He appears as a human being. He played like a human being, but he's not an ordinary human being. We may think, yeah, I know Krishna. I know he used to play the fool. He used to steal butter and he used to play with the gopis. But who is he actually? We need to understand Krishna in Tattva. Krishna is saying, Janma karma chame divyam evam yoveti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti swarjana. He's saying, just try to understand that my form is transcendental. My appearance is transcendental. My activities are transcendental. And just by understanding this, you can get no more need, no more need to be here in the material world, can get out of the material world of birth and death and go to the spiritual world and associate with Krishna there. Krishna is eternal. He is there in his spiritual planet called Golok Vrindavan. So Krishna came with his brother Balaram, but his birth was not like our birth, like ordinary birth. We are pushed out of the womb of a mother. Nobody asked us, oh, which parents you want to be born to, which family, which planet, which species. But Krishna, he decides that these devotees are going to be my parents. This is what I'm going to do. And how did he appear? Not that he was covered in all the, those liquids that we are covered in. No, he came as Narayan form, four-armed, holding conch, flower, chakra and his gada, the mace, wearing his clothes, beautiful ornaments. Beauty looks so beautiful. We come out crying and here the Lord is smiling. That his mother told him, now please, she was afraid that, oh, Kans has been looking for you. So he is going to come and harm you. So you please change yourself into looking like an ordinary human being. And that's what Krishna did. So,
Hello.
but that is love. It doesn't mean that Krishna is not God. Doesn't mean that Krishna, because he was born as the son of
Hello.
Devaki and Vasudeva, that he stops being God. You know,
Ha, ha,
like
sir.
Prabhupada would explain is there is a judge, but he's the judge in his office. And in the office, everybody calls him my lord, my lord. And when he goes home, his mother will say my son, the wife will say my darling, the children will say my father, right? So similarly, Krishna's parents, his friends, they never care that he's God. They don't care. They're just happy that they love Krishna and Krishna loves them. They have this loving relationship with Krishna. This is what Prabhupada is telling us here, that the devotees, they are covered by this yoga maya potency, internal potency of Krishna. They forget he's God and they just want to love him as their son, as their lover, as their friend. So now in this Kali Yuga, since we understand, oh, Krishna is the Supreme Lord, and then there are so many incarnations, Lord Nishingadev, Lord Ramachandra, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And now these incarnations, Krishna is God himself. He's not an incarnation. He's the Supreme Lord. All the incarnations are coming from him. Ete chamsa kalapumsa Krishnastu Bhagwan Swayam, says Srimad Bhagavatam. We are going to hear about it in Canto 1, Chapter 3, Text 28. That there are so many incarnations, but the original personality of Godhead is Lord Shri Krishna. Just as one original candle, and with that candle you can light so many candles, and all the candles will give equal heat and light, but yet there is one original candle. So similarly, all incarnations have equal power, but the original personality of Godhead is Lord Krishna. And then now what happens is in Kali Yuga, everyone wants to be called an incarnation of God. And so like that, we have so many incarnations. But the incarnation is one who is Sadhu, Guru, and Shastra all have to confirm it. That yes, this personality is actually incarnation of God, or he is God himself. The revealed scriptures, they have to predict that this personality is going to come and he's going to go do this thing and these are going to be his parents and this is what he's going to do. And all has to be in the revealed scriptures. That Krishna as the Supreme Lord is mentioned in all the revealed scriptures. That Krishna is gonna come as Lord Chaitanya in Kali Yuga is there in so many revealed scriptures. Even Bhagavatam says that Krishna is gonna come as a Channa avatar in a form of his devotee, and he'll be worshipped by the Sankirtana process. Those who are intelligent is gonna worship him by the Sankirtana process. So we are understanding that we can't cheaply take any incarnation. We can't think that everyone is God or anyone is God. No, only God is God. God is not a post that anyone can occupy it. It's not. It's not available for anyone to occupy this post. Only God, only Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, or someone may think, well, I'm not God now, but I'll do certain activities and I'm going to become God later. It doesn't happen. We can never become God. We are eternally parts and parcels of God. So we are given this information so that we can understand who God really is. And by understanding, we can get out of this material world. Any questions, comments? Anything to add? So reading on, text 21. Kalim agatam agyaya
Kalim agatam ajnaya
kshetresmin vaishnave vayam
kshetresmin vaishnave vayam
asina dirgha satrena
Ashina Dirgha Satrena
Kathayam Sakshana Hare.
Katayan Sakshana Hare. Anyone else wants to read? Okay, I'll continue. Translation. Knowing well that the age of Kali has already begun, we are assembled here in this holy place to hear at great length the transcendental message of Godhead and in this way perform sacrifice. Purport. This age of Kali is not at all suitable for self realization as was Satya Yuga, the golden age, or Treta or Dwapar Yugas, the silver and copper ages. For self realization, the people in Satyuga, living a lifetime of 100,000 years, were able to perform prolonged meditation, and in Treta Yuga, when the duration of life was 10,000 years, self realization was attained by performance of great sacrifice. And in the Dwapar Yuga, when the duration of life was 1,000 years, self realization was attained by worship of the Lord. But in the Kali Yuga, the maximum duration of life being 100 years only, and that combined with various difficulties. The recommended process of self realization is that of hearing and chanting the holy name, fame, and pastimes of the Lord. The sages of Namisharanya began this process in a place meant specially for the devotees of the Lord. They prepared themselves to hear the pastimes of the Lord over a period of 1,000 years. By the example of these sages, one should learn that regular hearing and recitation of the Bhagavatam is the only way for self realization. Other attempts are simply a waste of time, for they do not give any tangible results. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu preached the system of Bhagavata Dharma, and he recommended that all those who were born in India should take the responsibility of broadcasting the messages of Lord Sri Krishna, primarily the message of Bhagavad Gita. And when one is well established in the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, he can take up the study of Srimad Bhagavatam for further enlightenment in self realization.
So in Satyug, what was the age of the people?
100,000 years.
Yeah. And what was the process for self-realization?
Meditation.
Yeah. So
Prolonged.
because I'm sorry, prolonged meditation.
Yeah, prolonged meditation.
Yeah, prolonged. Because meditation not for an hour or two, you know. Like Vishwamitra, he performed meditation for 60,000 years. Because, okay, people were living for so many years, so they could meditate for thousands and thousands of years to get self-realization by the process of meditation. We heard Kardama Muni, third canto, we hear that he did meditation for 10,000 years. So the yogis, they would live for a long time. People in Satyug were living for 100,000 years. So they could spend, 50, 60,000 years for meditation and get self-realized by the process of meditation. And Satyug is called a golden age. Then Treta Yuga, what was the duration of life? How long could a human being live in Treta Yuga?
10,000 years.
10,000. And Treta Yuga is called what kind of what metal is it described as?
Silver.
Silver. And then what was the process of self-realization?
By sacrifice. Great sacrifice.
Yeah, fire sacrifices, great sacrifices. Like we hear also, like Lord Ramachandra, he went to the forest because the sages were doing sacrifices and the demons were troubling them, no, to perform the sacrifice. So people would do sacrifice for self-realization in Treta Yuga, and they would do these sacrifice for thousands and thousands of years. And Dwapar Yuga, what was the age of a human being?
1,000 years.
1,000. And how could one become self-realized?
Worship.
But
Worship. Yes, deity worship. Now comes Kali Yuga. Now we are Kali Yuga people. We have to understand we are not Satyug people, we are not Treta Yuga people, we are not Dwapar Yuga people. We can't live 100,000 years to do meditation. We can't. Because meditation 1-2 hours, that's not gonna give us self-realization. The goal of meditation is to self-realize, to see the Paramatma within the heart. That's not going to happen with 1-2 years. I'm sorry, 1-2 hours. Treta Yuga was for those big, big fire yagyas, fire sacrifices people would do. Dwapar Yuga by deity worship. Kali Yuga, how much is the life that is mentioned in the scriptures for us? Maximum life. 100. Now by practical experience, 100. Now practically we are in Kali Yuga and we are seeing people don't even live for 100. So maximum is said to be 100, but barely anyone actually lives for 100. And that also, there are so many difficulties. If one really lives for 100, after a certain age, we have so much physical difficulties, mental difficulties, the circumstance becomes so difficult. So how is one going to do all this meditation? How is one going to do deity worship to that degree? We do the deity worship, yes. According to the Pancharatrika Vidhi, we do that. But that elaborate type of deity worship, we can't do. Nor can we do these big, big sacrifice. So what is the process which is given to us in this age of Kali?
chanting.
Yes. Hearing and
Deity worship.
chanting of the holy name, fame, pastimes of the Lord. Yes. This is what is given to us in this age of Kali. Because we don't have anything else. We don't have the other qualifications that others had in the other ages. So hearing and chanting the holy name, fame, and pastimes of the Lord. Lord Chaitanya, he introduced this Bhagavata Dharma, hearing and chanting. Bhagavata Dharma. Now hearing and chanting. Hearing from where? Hearing Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. That's what we need to hear. We need to study the Bhagavad Gita, understand the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita. Then we need to study Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada would say we will find Krishna in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. If we can systematically study Bhagavatam, systematically going from canto to canto, chapter to chapter, verse by verse, then we can find Krishna in the pages of Bhagavatam. And Lord Chaitanya, what he said, that not only should we ourselves study and understand this message, but we should give this message to everyone else. Give this message of Bhagavad Gita to everyone to take up the hearing and chanting of the Lord's names. Tvamna sandarshito dhatra
Tvamna sandarshito dhatra
dustaram nistirishata
dushtaram nishtirtishkatam
alim sattva haram pumsam
Kalim
kalim
Sattva
sattva haram
Haram
pumsam
karnadhara ivarnavam
karnadhara ivarnavam.
Sneha, did you want to read?
Yeah, I can read. Thank you.
Ah.
We think that we have met your goodness by the will of providence, just so that we may accept you as captain of the ship for those who desire to cross the difficult ocean of Kali, which deteriorates all the good qualities of a human being. The age of Kali is very dangerous for the human being. Human life is simply meant for self realization, but due to this dangerous age, men have completely forgotten the aim of life. In this age, the lifespan will gradually decrease. People will gradually lose their memory, finer sentiments, strength, and better qualities. A list of the anomalies for this age is given in the 12th canto of this work. And so, this age is very difficult for those who want to utilize this life for self realization. The people are so busy with sense gratification that they completely forget about self realization. Out of madness, they frankly say that there is no need for self realization because they do not realize that this brief life is but a moment on our great journey towards self realization. The whole system of education is geared to sense gratification. And if a learned man thinks it over, he sees that the children of this age are being intentionally sent to the slaughterhouses of so called education. Learned men, therefore, must be cautious of this age, and if they all want to cross over the dangerous ocean of Kali, they must follow the footsteps of the sages of Naimisharanya and accept Sri Sut Goswami or his bona fide representative as the captain of the ship. The ship is the message of Lord Sri Krishna in the shape of Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam.
So then the sages are, what are they accepting Sutta Goswami as?
As their captain of the
Yeah,
ship.
yeah. They are choosing him as a captain. That, you guide our life now. Because this human life is meant for what?
Self realization.
Yeah. And then for self-realization, we need a, a bona fide spiritual master. And so they are accepting Sutta Goswami as their spiritual master to guide them out of this ocean of material world. And what is the ship called? What is this ship? He's the captain. And what is the ship?
Bhagavatam and Gita, Srimad Gita.
Yeah, yeah. Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. That is the ship. So this life is actually meant for self-realization. But the atmosphere of the age of Kali is such that we are made to forget that. And we are just said that this life is going to end soon, so enjoy as much as you want. Sure, we need enjoyment. The soul is always seeking enjoyment. But we also need to understand who we truly are. That we are not this body, we are spirit souls. And this life, we may think is very long, 100 years, very long. But we are seeing that, earlier ages, Satya people were living for 100,000 years. And then Lord Brahma, he's living for 3 trillion odd years. Right? But all this goes off in a flash. All this is flash. Why? Because the soul is eternal. After we give up this body, we are going to continue to exist. And what type of body will we take? And this human life is given to us to put an end of our circle of birth and death so that we can go to the spiritual world. We are spirit souls, so we need to go there. And That can be easily done in this age of Kali by hearing and chanting. Hearing and chanting. The message of Srimad Bhagavatam. Sneha, you remember? Kali doshe niderajan.
Yeah. Kali doshe niderajan asti haiko mahatmana. Kitanad. Sorry. Doshe niderajan asti haiko. Kitanad eva Krishnasya. I've forgotten.
That's all right. Do you remember the translation?
Yes. Yeah, in this age of Kali, the only way we can come out of it is by taking the name of the Lord.
Yeah. Chanting the holy names of the
Chanting
Lord.
the holy
Yes.
name, yes.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. So that's the message of Srimad Bhagavatam. So we continue to hear Bhagavad Gita, continue to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, and continue to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Text 23. Bruhi Yogeshware Krishne,
Bruhi Yogeshware Krishne,
Brahmanye Dharma Varmani,
Brahmanye Dharma Varmani,
Swam Kashnam Adunopete,
Swam Kashtam Adunopete,
Dharmakam Sharanam Gataha.
Dharma Kam Sharanam Gataha. Since Sri Krishna, the Absolute Truth, the master of all mystic powers, has departed for his own abode, please tell us to whom the religious principles have now gone for shelter. Essentially, religion is the prescribed codes enunciated by the personality of Godhead himself. Whenever there is gross misuse of or neglect of the principles of religion, the Supreme Lord appears himself to restore religious principles. This is stated in Bhagavad Gita. Here, the sages of Naimisharanya are inquiring about these principles. The reply to the question is given later. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the transcendental sound representation of the personality of Godhead, and thus it is the full representation of transcendental knowledge and religious principles. Thus end the
Thus end.
Bhaktivedanta purports of the first canto, first chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Questions by the Sages.
So Lord Krishna has just departed from this world, and so the sages are so concerned. Kali Yuga is going to come, and now Lord, and see, the sages, they understand Krishna's position. They're saying the absolute truth. He's the absolute truth. And now, where are the religious principles? Who do we have to go to? Where do we look for the religious principles? And that is Srimad Bhagavatam. That's the reason Lord Krishna has left behind the Bhagavatam for us. Religious principles, they are the codes given to us by God. Only God can create religious principles, or no ordinary person can do that. Only the Supreme Lord can do this. And the answer is Srimad Bhagavatam is the transcendental sound representation, because Bhagavatam completely only speaking of glories of the Supreme Lord, of his devotees. You know, there's nothing else in Bhagavatam. As we heard, there's no Kaitava Dharma. It's just purely transcendental. So it's full representation of transcendental knowledge and religious principles. Brings to the end of the first chapter, then chapter 2, Divinity and Divine Service. Vyasa Vacha.
Vyasa Uvacha.
Iti samprashna samprishto.
Iti samprashna samhristo.
Vipranam Roma Harshine.
Vipranam Rama Harshane.
Pratipujya Vachastesham.
Prati Puja Vachastesham.
Pravaktum Upachakrame.
Pravaktum Upachakrame. Ugrasva Sut Goswami, the son of Romarshana, being fully satisfied by the perfect questions of the Brahmanas, thanked them and thus attempted to reply. The sages of Naimisharanya asked Sut Goswami 6 questions, and so he is answering them one by one.
Sut Goswami, he is the son of Roma Harshan. Sutta Vacha
Sutta Uvacha
Yam Pravarjan Tamanupetamapeta Krityam.
Yam Pravajantam Anupetam Apeta Krityam
Vepayano Viraha Katara Ajuha.
Dvepayano Viraha Katara Ajuhava
Putreti Tanmataya Taravo Binetus.
Putreti Tanmayataya Taravo Vinedus
Tam Sarva Bhuta Hridayam Muni Anatosmi.
Tam Sarva Bhuta Hridayam Munim Anatosmi. Srila Sut Goswami said, "Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto that great sage, Shukdev Goswami, who can enter the hearts of all. When he went away to take up the renounced order of life, sannyas, leaving home without undergoing reformation by the sacred thread or the ceremonies observed by the higher caste, his father, Vyasdev, fearing separation from him, cried out, 'O my son, indeed only the trees, which were absorbed in the same feelings of separation, echoed in response to the bereaved father.' The institution of Varna and Ashrama prescribed many regulative duties to be observed by its followers. Such duties enjoin that a candidate willing to study the Vedas must approach a bona fide spiritual master and request acceptance as his disciple. The sacred thread is the sign of those who are competent to study the Vedas from the Acharya or the bona fide spiritual master. Sri Shukdev Goswami did not undergo such purificatory ceremonies because he was a liberated soul from his very birth.
So Sutta Goswami is offering obeisances to his spiritual master, Sukadev Goswami. You see, we are hearing the Bhagavatam in the disciplic succession. Sutta Goswami, he heard from Sukadev Goswami. Sukadev Goswami heard from his father, Srila Vyasadeva. So we are hearing in that line. And Prabhupada is pointing out that why Sukadev Goswami did not undergo the initiation ceremony, which is a prerequisite that anyone who's following the Varna Sharma system had to take initiation from a bona fide spiritual master. That one is now ready to study the scriptures, the Brahman initiation, taking a Brahman thread. But Srila Sukadev Goswami didn't do that because he was already a liberated soul. He didn't need to undergo this kind of a ceremony.
Generally, a man is born as an ordinary being, and by the purificatory processes, he is born for the second time. When he sees a new light and seeks direction for spiritual progress, he approaches a spiritual master for instruction in the Vedas. The spiritual master accepts only the sincere inquirer as his disciple and gives him the sacred thread. In this way, a man becomes twice born or a dvija. After qualifying as a dvija, one may study the Vedas. And after becoming well versed in the Vedas, one becomes a Vipra. A Vipra or a qualified Brahmana thus realizes the absolute and makes further progress in spiritual life until he reaches the Vaishnava stage. The Vaishnava stage is the postgraduate status of a Brahmana. A progressive Brahmana must necessarily become a Vaishnava, for a Vaishnava is a self realized, learned Brahmana.
So here, Prabhupada is pointing out, when a human being is born, it's generally ordinary. That's the first birth. And the initiation ceremony, that's the second birth. So, of course, the initiation is given. There's the first initiation, which we get initiated into the Harinam, chanting of the holy name. And then the second initiation, that is the Brahmanical initiation, where one gets the sacred thread, one gets to chant the Gayatri. One can, in bigger temples, one can do the deity worship. So, of course, the first initiation is sufficient for us to take us back home, back to Godhead. The Harinam initiation, getting initiated into chanting the holy name. So the Brahman, so he's called a Dvija, means twice born, because he's taken the initiation of the second initiation, so he's called twice born. And then he studies the Vedas. He becomes a student, so he's called a Vipra. Then he's called a Brahmana when he realizes the absolute truth. He realizes the Supreme Brahman, understands that I'm not the Supreme Brahman, that there is a Supreme Brahman, that is a Brahmana, qualified Brahman. Means he studied, he's understood, and he continues with his spiritual life. He continues and he understands, oh, God is a person. He becomes a Vaishnava. So a Brahmana, he has to progress further and come to the point of becoming a pure devotee, a Vaishnava, self-realized, learned Brahmana. So a Vaishnava is automatically a Brahmana, but a Brahmana may not be a Vaishnava. Just like a PhD has already done their undergraduate. It means one has already finished undergraduate, that's how one could do PhD, but an undergraduate may or may not be a PhD. That's the idea.
Srila Sukdev Goswami was a Vaishnava from the beginning. Therefore, there was no need for him to undergo all the processes of Varna Ashram institution. Ultimately, the aim of Varnashram Dharma is to turn a crude man into a pure devotee of the Lord or a Vaishnava. Anyone, therefore, who becomes a Vaishnava accepted by the first class Vaishnava or Uttam Adhikari Vaishnava is already considered a Brahmana, regardless of his birth or past deeds. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted this principle and recognized Srila Haridas Thakur as the Acharya of the holy name. Although Thakur Haridas appeared in a Mohammedan family. In conclusion, Srila Shukdev Goswami was born a Vaishnava and therefore Brahmanism was included in him. He did not have to undergo any ceremonies. Any low-born person, be he a Kirat, Kuna, Andhra, Pulinda, Pulkash, Apira, Shumba, Yavan, Kasha, or even lower, can be delivered to the highest transcendental position by the mercy of Vaishnavas. Srila Shukdev Goswami was the spiritual master of Sri Sut Goswami, who therefore offers his respectful obeisances unto Srila Sukdev Goswami before he begins his answers to the questions of the sages of Naimisharan.
So that's the etiquette. Sutta Goswami is offering obeisances to his spiritual master. He's been elected the speaker. So before speaking, he is offering obeisances to his spiritual master, Sukadev Goswami. Prabhupada was pointing out why Sukadev Goswami didn't need to do any purificatory processes because he was already a pure devotee of the Lord. All the rituals, everything, all the principles of religion are there for one to become a pure devotee of the Lord. Doesn't matter which family one is born, which community, which society, it doesn't matter. What needs to be done is to become a pure devotee of the Lord. And that happens by the mercy of another devotee. A devotee, he gives his mercy freely. Yeah. So this is what is being said here, and we'll stop here. Was there any questions or comments? No, then we'll stop here and we'll continue tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.